Hi everyone, my name is Kayla and welcome back to Kay's Hidden Shelf where we talk about books. Today I wanted to talk about something a little bit different because this has been nagging at me for quite some time, and if it helps someone out there, fantastic. But today we're going to be talking about making videos, a little bit behind the scenes on what I do here on the channel and how you can start your own channel if you're interested. Making your own channel, making your own videos can be a daunting process. Even today in 2025, there's a lot of equipment to look at, research. There's a lot of new skills you might need to learn if you've never done video recording or editing before. There's a lot that goes with it, and it can be intimidating, it could be daunting, and it can be discouraging at times if you're following all the right steps, but not getting the results you're hoping for. So what I wanted to talk about in today's video is how to get started, what's most important when you're getting started, and just some of the equipment I use. Now, I am by no means an expert in any of this, but I have spent quite a bit of time doing research and learning the hard way. And as a result, I wanted to talk a little bit about what the important things are when you're starting and just share my experience in hopes that it helps someone else who is just starting out. So my advice is not an expert's advice at all, but it is from experience and using the equipment I have had over the last few years since I started this channel back in 2022. The first thing you want to think about is your topic. What's your channel going to be about? If you know what your channel is going to be about, great, skip ahead. If you're still trying to figure that out, play around. Write down a few things that you're interested in talking about on your potential channel. Try making a few videos potentially in the background to see how it feels for you in terms of recording, because that's going to be huge too. If you're not comfortable recording a particular topic, even though it interests you, it might not be the topic you want to go with for your channel. So try a few different things, nail it down. For me, it's books. I talk about books. I interview authors. Everything on this channel is centered around books. That is my niche. So figure out what your channel's niche is going to be, and that's your first step. Once you have that, figure out where you're going to record. Where you plan to record is going to impact what lighting you're going to need, your setup, how you're going to differentiate your focal point versus your background. All of those things, though, go around your home, wherever you intend to record, and try out a few different spots, even just with your phone. Whatever phone you have, iPhone, Samsung, whatever phone, put it up and just see what the angle looks like, what the background looks like, what it looks like on the screen in terms of your recording, just to get an idea of how it will look if you plan to record in this spot consistently. Another thing to remember is if you are going to be posting and recording a lot of videos often and even just once a week, you might want to pick a spot where you can keep a setup constantly. If you do not want to have to take up your setup and put it down all the time, trying to get the same angle for each video to make it consistent, you may want to consider a more permanent setup. For me, I record in my old studio, and this is just a room in our house that I originally used as a musician to practice and play, and it was only being half used really, so I decided why not try and use it for the videos as well. Originally, I started recording in the closet and worked my way to where I am today. So before you go ahead and start recording in that space that you've designated as where you're going to record, there's a few things you do want to keep in mind, one of which is lighting. Now, if you have a window near where you're going to record providing natural light, you can absolutely work with that. There is a great video on recording videos with just no budget and using what you have. I'll leave a link to it down in the description below if you want to watch it, because it is fantastic at explaining the rules of lighting and how to create depth and just intriguing setups and backgrounds. It can do it far better than I can, so definitely go check out that video. But you can use your natural lighting. If you've got a window set up nearby, you can use that as your lighting, and then place a few ambient lights or backlights in the background if you have enough space, because you do want to set up a bit of distance between you and your background. That is going to make a world of difference in the quality of video that you end up producing. It's a small trick, but it really does make a difference in terms of viewership. And so go watch that video on lighting in terms of zero budget. Again, you can do it with just your windows and little table lamps that you may already own. The downside of using natural light though, and I've learned this the hard way, is that if you are recording over a long period of time, there will be inconsistencies in your lighting throughout the video because the sun is moving and the lighting is shifting as you're recording. So you can absolutely record with the natural lighting through the window, but if you are recording in a space where that is very obvious in terms of the lighting shift, or if you're recording for quite a long time, just be mindful that your lighting is going to change. Or let's say your schedule on when you record is going to differ day to day. Your lighting may not be consistent between videos either, and it just becomes a little bit trickier to have more freedom in terms of when you record. I personally prefer having lights set up, and we'll talk about what lights I have and how to go about setting up lighting. But just keep that in mind. If you're going to use natural light, you do need to be aware that your lighting is going to change depending on your time of day and how long you're recording. If you're not using natural lighting, then you're going to need some lights. Now, really, there's a couple differences I want to talk about here because ideally you want a key light and then you want accent light or whatever the proper term for it is, in addition to a couple backlights. Now, this is going to change in terms of positioning depending on if you are wearing glasses. I know that might sound silly, but a lot of times, a lot of videos I've watched, they talk about the key light going straight ahead or very closely directly to the side. The downside of doing that when you have glasses is you get a glare. Some people do not care, and that is great, but it can be distracting to viewers. So if you are like me and you wear glasses, then you're going to shift the positioning of your lights to the sides. In terms of what brands I am using, I'm just using a cheap ring light on my left. It has 3 color settings. It's dimmable and it's got a camera stand on it as well if I need to record in a different format or using my phone. And then on the other side, I have a newer light. Now I'll put all the specifics in the bottom of the screen for you. And there is one downside to this light. Now it does come in a 2-pack. It came with 2. Originally I started using the 2, but it was too high in exposure. Now it's not a soft light. Ideally you want soft lighting for your videos, and the newer light is extremely bright. It is harsher light, which gives a bit of a harsher edge and higher exposed areas on your face. Basically it looks like it's a beam of sunlight going on your face rather than a soft light that naturally accents your face and looks a little bit more like you're not in an apocalypse out in the sunshine. Really what soft light does is it just helps give nicer angles and shadows that look more appealing for viewers, and it looks more professional as well. In my case with the newer light, I ended up twisting it up to the ceiling to get that soft light. Now I actually have it at the lowest brightness setting, and it still gives plenty of light, as you can see. Just angled up to the ceiling, it bounces the light back down in a softer hue. So it's interesting trick, but it's one that I've seen before in terms of other YouTubers who had their setup up against a wall, so their desk and their lights were up against a wall, but rather than have the key light or the additional light facing directly on them, they would turn it around to face the wall and have that light reflect back on them to create a softer light. So there are tricks like that you can use and play around with your lights. That's the biggest thing. Set up whatever camera you're going to use. We're going to talk about cameras in a moment. And then put your lights up and figure out what you like best. In terms of backlighting, I've been experimenting, like I said. So my lights, I don't know that I'd 100% recommend them. If you are tight on a budget, by all means, they're actually worth giving a try. If you're looking for a more professional and long-term setup, there are better options out there. In terms of my backlighting, they are just 2 small portable backlights. You can change the color, the settings on them. They're quite versatile, but they do come with a few drawbacks. The drawback being that they can overheat and shut off if they've been on too long, so keep that in mind. Typically, mine last about an hour to an hour and a half. And why I got them is because my backdrop and my space is limited. So I have a giant bookshelf behind me. There's not a plug in sight on that wall, even behind the bookshelf. And I was limited in what I could do for lighting. So these are chargeable. You can charge the battery and not have them plugged in for their use. That's why they last about an hour to an hour and a half in my case. You can actually plug them in if you're planning to use them more long term in a setup. Again, there are probably better options for you, but these do work with just turning them on. They're charged. I have an hour to an hour and a half to record, and I can just pop them up on the top shelves. And the reason I'm doing this is to mainly differentiate me from my background, as silly as that might sound. But it makes the background a little bit more interesting, and it also separates my hair. My hair is a very dark color, and in this lighting, it just blends into the shelving behind me otherwise. There are plenty of different examples of backlighting in terms of corner lamps, where you can entirely backlight the whole background in blue, red, whatever kind of color you want. You can make some pretty interesting backdrops. Your creativity is really the limit. So take a look at different products. I would recommend doing a bit of research on the backlighting to fit your individual circumstance. Like I said, these small ones work for me, and they fulfill the need that they need to. But if I were to change my setup, if I had plugs, if I had a bit more option, I would probably go with something a bit different. And again, it would be an experiment to see what looks best. Because my backdrop is books, there are plenty of viewers who do want to see the titles and the authors and have that visible. But then there's also the other section of viewers who really don't care and they much prefer aesthetic. So you're never going to win as a creator, but do what you love. Do what looks good for your channel, what you can afford, and honestly, just play around, see what works for you. That is the biggest thing in all of this. Let's talk about cameras, because you can go all out or you can use what you have. If all you have is your phone, by all means, use your phone. Just keep in mind that by using your phone, you are going to need better lighting. Phones only work so well in low lighting situations. Even with a lighting setup the way I have it, my iPhone does not record as well as this camera does, which is the Sony a6400, I believe. Now, I got this when I started my channel because I wanted a decent video quality, again, in low lighting. I've recorded plenty of videos on my phone, don't get me wrong. The problem that I've run into, and you will probably too, is that in low lighting, you're going to get a lot of pixeling, you're going to get a lot of blurriness. The quality might not be to the level that you're expecting. As opposed to if you're recording in more natural lighting and higher lighting environments, you're going to get a clearer picture. It's just the way the camera is. If you can go into a whole deep dive on that topic alone, there are great cameras like this one and others that have come out since this one has released. So definitely do some homework on what you prefer. Again, it's going to depend on your setup. If you're in more natural lighting, definitely you can go with your camera. It'll be perfectly fine on your phone. And it's just use what you have. When you're starting out, you're not going to have the budget that big YouTubers have. I want to make that clear. Not everyone is going to be able to go out and buy a $2,000 camera and like $400, $600 in lighting. If you have a lower budget, it's perfectly fine to use what you have. You can absolutely do that. So if you're starting out, you're not sure if you're going to do this long term, you can record on your phone, no problem. I've found over the years that viewers much prefer audio quality to video quality. So if you're going to invest in anything, save your budget for audio. And if you want to upgrade your camera down the line, You absolutely can. As for the camera I'm currently recording with, it is the Sony a6400. There are probably better models you can get today for your money. This was the one that was recommended to me when I started the channel and I was looking at better video quality. It can record in 4K, however, it does drop the FPS, which is not ideal for me. I'd rather have a higher FPS at 1080p, so 1080p and 60 frames per second, rather than having 4K at only 30 FPS. So there are some things you want to look at in terms of those details. If you're not familiar with the jargon or how all of that works, again, there are plenty of great videos to look at, but that's something you want to keep in mind in terms of buying a camera, is that how well it records in low light if you are in a setup like mine, and whether or not it records in 4K, 1080p, how many frames per second it records in at both of those levels, and all of the other features that it comes with as well. While I record my videos on this camera, I can also take this camera and use it for family vacations and going out and taking videos. There are plenty of other uses I can use this for. So if this is going to be an investment for you in terms of your channel, make sure it's multi-purpose to the rest of your life as well, because it's a camera. You can use it for plenty of other moments in your life as opposed to just your iPhone or Samsung, whatever you have. As for how I have all of this mounted, I primarily use the Elgato Master Mount for my camera. You can get a bunch of different accessories to do different setups that are unique to your content and what you hope to record. And then, of course, the Elgato mic stand as well. This is just the brand that has been, to me, in terms of reviews, the most reliable, the highest quality, and that was my biggest concern when my camera is about $2,000 and being held up by a clamp. I want that quality to be good because there's a lot of money on the line with the camera. What about audio? Well, audio is going to differ based on your setup and your needs. There are so many different setups for mics, so many preferred brands. There's a lot to choose from, but there are a few key points you want to keep in mind before you go out and buy a mic. That is the huge point I want to make here, is that you can record the audio from your iPhone while you're recording the video. It is not going to be the best quality in my experience, but you can do it. If you're looking to put all your budget into a mic, do your homework and understand how sound works with a mic while you're recording in whatever space it is prior to investing. The reason I say this is because sound bounces around. So if you are in a large echoey room, you might get a lot of background noise, a lot of reverb, echoing in the mic itself, which will actually worsen your audio quality. So take some snapshots with your phone, whatever you have, and try and see how the sound bounces around. There's, again, lots of great videos on how to learn about audio and how to set it up properly, from using the foam padding to reduce some of the echoing and reverb in the room, how to use a few tricks to help you record cleaner audio as well. There's some great tips out there. The main ones that I've used include using the foam padding on one door that I have to this room, in addition to a area carpet on the hardwood to help reduce some of that echoing as well. The next thing to keep in mind is whether or not you're going to go with a condenser mic or a dynamic mic. Yes, they make a difference. For whatever reason, when I was originally trying and testing out different mics, I originally actually started with a tiny little Rode mic and the audio quality was just terrible. I would not recommend it. But one of the issues I ran into with condenser mics was that the audio quality I could never get clean. It always had some kind of static or issues behind it. It could have just been the quality of the mics I was going with. But at the same time, I tried, I think, 2 or 3 different ones in the background here on the channel, and I ran into the same issue time and time again. I will say condenser mics, as far as I've heard talking to audiobook narrators, is actually the preferred type of microphone to go with recording their audiobooks. But please keep in mind that many audiobook narrators are recording in a huge or perfectly set up sound booth that is designed to keep that reverb out, whether they are beautifully encased in blankets, what have you. They have a setup that is designed to help reduce all of that background noise. But I have also seen plenty of other content creators have no issues with their condenser mics. It could be an issue of the room setup, the audio, my equipment, what have you. And there's a lot of things to keep in mind. If you are buying a mic, go through Amazon. If you are not sure if it's going to work for you, that way, if you do run into technical issues, if you run into setup problems, you can have the option to return it and try something different if you are really not sure what you're looking at. In terms of a dynamic mic like I have here, this is the Shure MV7. This is not the highest level of mic that they make. It is one of the lower ones. So there's a whole science and jargon on plugging audio in with different tools and condenser boxes. I literally just have this mic set up to my laptop. It is only plugged into my laptop. I use Audacity to record the audio, and I sync the video, which is recorded separately on the camera, with the audio in my editing software, which we'll talk about later. The mic has worked great. It has a software on my laptop that I can adjust the gain and different settings on it to get the audio quality that I like. I have noticed with this mic, for whatever reason, that it actually picks up my husband's voice in another room better than it picks up my own voice. I have a softer voice. I'm a small lady. So I actually need to make sure that if I am recording, my husband is not anywhere near the the room where I record, even if he is in a separate space, because it picks up deeper sounds, I've found, louder sounds than it picks up softer ones that are right up to the mic. So keep that in mind as well. This could probably be fixed with additional hardware. There are boxes you can get to hook up to your mic and make all of those dynamic changes, gain changes directly through that while recording rather than post and editing. However, again, budget. All of that costs money. So we're talking about doing this on a budget. You have so many options when it comes to recording videos. You can do this on a low budget versus unlimited if you really want. But what it comes down to is, what do you absolutely need for your setup and what works for you? Another option you can look at when it comes to microphones and audio recording, especially if you're going to be vlogging or walking around or in different settings and you can't really have a main mic mounted in one place, is a wireless microphone. These are two different ones. We have the receiver and then the main microphone. You can get as many microphones as you need for this as well. I personally have the Rode Wireless ME. There are different ones that you can get. DJI, there's a lot of different brands. Again, do your homework, pick the one that works for you. But I use this for shorts. I use this for when I can't record in this space or I prefer to record in a different setting. These have been great for me so far. I really, really like them. And they don't produce the same quality of audio as the Shure mic, but they still produce better audio quality than my iPhone, for example. So different options. It works great with my iPhone when I need to record with it and I'm on the go. Definitely something to consider if you are going to be in a similar boat or if you just want to expand your video content. So you've got your camera, you've got your lighting, your microphone, your software to record your audio if need be. Like I said, I use Audacity, and you're ready to hit record. Great. I have a few tips. Before you record your first full-blown video, do a 5-minute recording, just blabbering about anything, to get an idea of how your lighting actually looks on you, how the audio sounds, and test it in your editing software that you decide to go with, because there are lots of options and there are lots of free options. But do a 5-minute test video to get an idea of what the audio quality is going to sound like. Even seasoned YouTubers, people doing this a long time, still make mistakes in turning the camera on properly, making sure the memory card is cleared out, making sure that their mic is actually connected properly to the recording software, all of it. You can make a lot of silly mistakes and then regret it later when you realize an hour has gone by and you actually have not recorded a proper video. This also gives you a chance to make sure that all of these settings that you have put for your camera's lighting, how it perceives exposure, for the audio and its clarity, what it's going to look and sound like post in editing, and if it's what you want. You also have time to change your lighting if you're not happy with it either. So do a 5-minute test video to make sure that everything is set up the way you are happy, and then record your first video. Now, if you have a bit of a bigger budget and you want to test out different styles of shooting, different spaces where you're going to record, or even cinematic shots, then you might want to consider a gimbal. I've got one, and so far I've actually quite enjoyed it. It lets me record some of my videos outside. I could see this being great for vloggers as well, so definitely something to consider when you're looking at your video setup. Let's talk about video editing. If you have zero video editing experience, try one of the free softwares, and we'll talk about them in a moment, but I would highly recommend you watch a few videos on the basics of video editing. It will make your life so much easier. Trust me. Learn about J cuts, learn about L cuts, learn about the different settings and features in whatever software you decide to go with, but learn the basics and then give yourself some practice time with editing, because it can be a frustrating process if you've never done it before. You might not see the results you want right away, and it can take time to get good at editing. Give yourself a little grace. The ones that I have used in past include After Effects, Filmora, and DaVinci Resolve. After Effects I used because it was the software I actually had from high school, because I did a video editing course back then, and I still had the software. The license was still good. Why not? And I hated it. I did not enjoy my experience with it. Don't get me wrong, it is a great tool. It can do some really interesting things. You can go ham on it if you want, but it is not friendly. It does not play nice. It crashes a lot when it shouldn't. It has a hard time playing the video back as you're trying to edit and watch how it looks. It's more trouble than it's worth. I will say that. Filmora, on the other hand, is a free option you can look at. I know several content creators who use Filmora. I tried it. It was not for me. I was not keen on the layout of it, on its functionality, and the presets that it had for transitions and all of that. It wasn't quite what I was hoping for, and I found myself struggling a lot more with it than I would have liked. Eventually, I landed on DaVinci Resolve, and so far I would say this is probably the best editing software I have used. It has a free version. I tried the free version, and eventually I did upgrade to the paid version because I loved it that much and I wanted the additional features that come with the full version. There are still plenty of features that come with the free version. There are a lot. You don't have to get the paid version of DaVinci Resolve, not at all. But for what I just wanted everything that it came with to make my life a little bit easier, since time can be limited for me when it comes to editing. The nice thing with DaVinci Resolve as well is that there are a lot of professional content creators out there who their skill is just making presets in terms of arrows and title transitions and video transitions, highlight reels, loading bars, those little pop-ups that you see on the screen. There are content creators out there who are great at making those in the Fusion page of DaVinci Resolve, but then also are incredible people and share them for free or by donation. So you have even more options if you are learning this for the first time, but you still want those like subscribe buttons or all of those fancy things that you see in editing on other people's channels. Odds are you can probably find it as a preset made by someone else, and then you can customize it to your preferences. So do your research, take a look at the different free video editing softwares that are out there, see what works for you, maybe download a couple, try them out. Like I said, you can record some test footage and try that in the different softwares as well. Use what works best for you. Everyone is different in their preferences and what they want as goals for their channel and what they want their videos to look like. The last piece of advice I'll give you with that is if you're limited in time, like I am in my schedule, What I did was I tried to learn a new editing skill or technique every video. So every video I tried to learn something different, something new, a way to make my videos more visually appealing and interactive. And that is something you can do as well. If you have more time, obviously you can play around a little bit more, you can learn more skills at once. But if you are pressed for time like I am, if you've got a busy life, whatever it may be, give yourself a challenge of every video you make. Plan to learn one new editing skill with each one. It can be something as small as learning how to customize a title screen, how to play around with your lighting post op, your audio post op, all of that. And just play around, have fun, because that is the main reason for keeping you involved in that as well. If you are frustrated, if you are losing your patience and getting angry with the process, you're probably going to put it down and not come back to it or hate the process. Make it fun. Give yourself a goal to learn a new skill each time. Have fun with it. If you're starting to stress, don't worry about it. Figure that skill out next video and just try and get your video out if you're on a deadline, for example. When it comes to making thumbnails, I personally use Canva, and there is a free version of Canva. I originally started using the free version and I got continuously frustrated that they do have pro features and paid for options. So I ended up just paying for the annual subscription. That's where a big part of my budget goes in terms of thumbnails and making other social media content and posts and pictures and promotional stuff and marketing. But that is honestly probably the cleanest and easiest tool you could use to make your thumbnails. I would not recommend anything else other than Canva. That's not sponsored. That's just me from my experience in using other options. Canva is the easiest, quickest, and most professional kind of tool you can use for thumbnails at this point, in my opinion. Lighting, cameras, microphones, setup in terms of recording, video editing, there's a lot to think about, and there's a lot you can experiment with to get the look and the sound quality that you are happy with. At the end of the day, you want to work within your budget if you're starting a YouTube channel and you really don't have a lot of freedom in terms of budget. This is a great way to do it. Explore, look at your options in terms of free softwares and using lighting you have, space you have. And then when it comes to recording the video, your topic. Think about what topic you want to talk about, what the themes of your conversations are going to be like. If you're the type to script your videos in advance, you can script them. If you are the type to just go off the cuff, by all means, do a few test videos if you need to. If you need to get the feel of recording a video instead of being a deer in the headlights, by all means, try it out. Find your voice, find how you are comfortable recording videos, and then how you articulate that to the camera. That is often overlooked when you're recording a video for the first time and making your channel for the first time, because as a viewer, you're so used to seeing the person, the content creator talking to you. But when you actually go to record your video, it becomes quite apparent that you are probably going to be alone in a room talking to a camera and losing your focus, losing your train of thought. Those are all possible things. There are people out there who are naturals and can just blurb whatever they need to say into the camera. And I've seen people who can get their video, their content, articulate it all in one take, and others like me who needs to take multiple takes, which to me is just a crazy amount of skill, as opposed to many content creators like myself who need to snip and cut here and there as they've trailed off or taken a moment to think about their content. So my biggest piece of advice once you have your setup and before you start posting videos is experiment. Record a few videos, see if you're happy with them. Don't be too harsh of a critic on yourself, because that is also a pitfall you want to avoid. But try a couple videos, see if you're happy with how you're articulating it and how the editing process goes. Give yourself some time to practice, basically. And I wouldn't say do 3 or 4 videos, maybe 1 or 2 just to get a feel for it. But at that point, you can start recording more videos. And from there, I would actually recommend having a backlog of about 4 to 5 videos prior to posting them to give yourself some buffer time. Life happens. Usually when you start a channel, it's a side gig, it's something you're doing for fun or as a hobby. And you might fall behind on your deadlines on when you post videos. So, having a bit of a backlog will help take that stress off. And you can keep that backlog going so long as you are continuing to record consistently. Apart from that, have fun with it. Enjoy the process, experiment, see what works for you. What you do today for your channel might not work for your channel in 2 weeks or a month or a year. Learn and grow and have fun with the process. If you have any questions about any of this, please leave them down in the comments below. I'd be happy to try and help you best I can, or if I can't, point you in the right direction. If you are watching this and you have advice for newbies starting out in content creation, by all means, pop them down below in the comments. We want to help people, right? We want to help people feel confident in starting out and feeling like they have the right place to investigate what works for them and their content creation. So pop those comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, take care of yourselves.